But approaching this role, I mean, did you think that it was going to have such an impact on so many generations?
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I really had I had just become a member of the Actors Studio, and I didn't really want to do it, but they weren't happy with the person who did the pilot.
For decades, Gilligan's Island has lived in the hearts of fans as a light-hearted comedy, with Tina Louise's Ginger stealing the spotlight as the glamorous movie star stranded on a deserted island. But what if the story you thought you knew wasn't the whole truth? Behind her dazzling smile and unforgettable performance, Tina Louise carried feelings and experiences she never shared until now. What she finally revealed changes how we see the show forever. How Tina Louise landed Ginger. When Tina Louise first stepped into the spotlight as Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island, it seemed like a perfect fit. She had the glamorous look, the Broadway credentials, and the charisma to light up the screen. Yet the story behind how she ended up as the island's resident movie star was far more complicated than it appeared. In fact, Tina wasn't even sure she wanted the role at all. In the early 1960s, Louise was already carving out an impressive career. She had been performing on Broadway and had earned acclaim for her talent and presence on stage. At the time, she was starring alongside Carol Burnett in Fade Out, Fade In, a musical comedy that won over audiences. The show brought her both critical recognition and a Tony nomination, cementing her reputation as one of the most promising performers of her generation. It was during this successful run that CBS came calling. The network had been developing a new sitcom, a quirky show about a group of castaways stranded on an uncharted island. The producers wanted a glamorous character who could blend comedy with allure, someone who combined the comedic sensibilities of Lucille Ball with the glamorous mystique of Marilyn Monroe. Ethel Wynant, a CBS casting director, reached out to Louise. She believed that Tina had the perfect qualities to bring this vision to life. It was a tempting offer, the chance to transition from stage to television and potentially reach millions of viewers across the country. Intrigued, Tina left her role in Fade Out, Fade In and agreed to give television a try. She stepped into the world of Gilligan's Island with optimism, ready to play a character who, on the surface, seemed bright, lively, and charming. But almost immediately, Louise felt a disconnect between what she had been promised and the direction the character was taking. In an interview with People, Tina revealed her initial dismay when she first began working on the show. "I got there, and the director wanted it to be a more sarcastic kind of character. And so, then I didn't even want to work on it anymore. I told him I wanted to quit." For Louise, the character she encountered on set did not align with the image she had envisioned. Instead of a light-hearted, witty figure, the role seemed sharp-edged and, at times, unlikable. Her dissatisfaction grew to the point where she seriously considered walking away before the show had even started. It was a pivotal moment. Here was an actress on the verge of television fame, yet she questioned whether the price of playing a role that didn't feel authentic was worth it. She openly told CBS she was ready to step away. But let's tell you what really pushed Tina to the edge, the moment she nearly walked away from Gilligan's Island before the cameras even rolled. Rewriting Ginger. For Tina, Ginger was supposed to represent the enchantment of stardom in a comedic setting. The idea of playing a biting, unlikable character ran against her instincts as a performer. In her view, people tuned into television to escape into characters they could enjoy and root for, not ones who would alienate them. Instead of keeping her concerns to herself, Louise took the bold step of going directly to CBS leadership. She explained that Ginger, as written at that stage, would never win over the public. In her words, viewers would not embrace a doll that was not nice. She pressed for a portrayal that was glamorous, approachable, and layered with humor. To Tina, the character had to have warmth beneath the surface beauty in order to feel real and engaging. Her stance created tension with creator Sherwood Schwartz, who originally pictured Ginger as more of a sharp-edged temptress. Louise argued for a softer, more playful approach, pointing to figures like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield as models. Those screen icons had captured audiences not only with their looks, but also with their comedic timing and vulnerable charm. That balance, she believed, would make Ginger resonate. The disagreements were not easy, but they were pivotal. Louise's persistence helped reshape the show's creative direction. Over time, Louise grew to love the part she had almost abandoned. She later rejected the idea that she had disliked being on the show, pointing out that her struggles were about the way the character was initially written, not the role itself. As she clarified in a later reflection, "Never true. I loved doing my part, especially after they really started writing for my character. I really loved my character." This statement underscores how the adjustments in tone and writing were vital in turning what could have been a deal-breaking disappointment into one of the most iconic performances of her career. The transformation of Ginger Grant from a hard-nosed temptress into a more glamorous and relatable figure was a victory not only for Tina Louise, but also for the show as a whole. Her insistence that Ginger needed depth and likability added a necessary dimension to Gilligan's Island. The result was a character who became a pop culture touchstone, remembered as much for her wit and poise as for her beauty. Without that evolution, Ginger may have been forgettable, but instead, she became one of the central reasons viewers tuned in week after week. Louise's near departure is a reminder of how fragile the making of television can be. One misstep in character development could have cost the show its sparkle. Yet, by voicing her concerns and holding firm to her instincts, Tina helped shape Ginger into the star of the island. The process was not easy, but it ensured that her performance would stand the test of time. But how exactly did those early conflicts shift into a breakthrough that secured the show's success? The turning point came with Richard Donner's touch, turning trouble into triumph. In the early days of Gilligan's Island, the atmosphere behind the scenes was anything but settled. Every television series faces growing pains in its earliest stages, and Gilligan's Island was no exception. Before it became the lighthearted cultural touchstone that millions remember, its creative direction wavered. Producers and executives soon realized that the vision guiding the pilot episodes was not landing with the tone they had hoped to achieve. The comedy felt stiff, the pacing lacked rhythm, and the chemistry that should have sparkled between cast members seemed restrained. Something had to change. The solution arrived in the form of Richard Donner, a rising talent who would eventually become one of Hollywood's most successful filmmakers. At the time, Donner was already earning a reputation for his sharp instincts and his ability to bring a more natural style of humor to the screen. He was chosen to step in after the decision was made to move away from the original directorial approach, which had emphasized exaggerated sarcasm and rigid comedic timing. That earlier style risked alienating audiences, making the characters appear too flat and one-dimensional. Replacing a director was never an easy decision for a network in the 1960s. Television budgets were tight, production schedules were grueling, and executives worried about disrupting momentum. Still, the gamble was necessary. Donner brought a fresh comedic sensibility that immediately energized the set. Instead of forcing jokes, he encouraged spontaneity, urging the performers to lean into their strengths. This change created a looser atmosphere that allowed personalities to shine and interactions to feel more authentic. Replacing the director also brought stability to the entire cast. Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., Jim Backus, Natalie Schafer, and the others all benefited from Donner's lighter touch. The ensemble chemistry began to shine, which was crucial for a show centered on a group dynamic. By the time filming settled into its rhythm, the actors had found the comedic balance that would make Gilligan's Island a lasting favorite. When the series finally premiered in 1964, audiences were ready for the kind of entertainment it offered. The country was going through a turbulent era marked by civil unrest, political uncertainty, and national tragedies. Viewers were looking for a lighthearted escape, something that could make them laugh and forget the heaviness of the world outside their living rooms. Gilligan's Island delivered exactly that. Its silly plots, exaggerated characters, and playful banter were not meant to be taken seriously, and that was precisely what made it comforting. The show quickly found its audience, offering 30 minutes of comedy that felt like a relief at a time when the nightly news was filled with tension. Ginger Grant, transformed under Donner's influence and the writer's adjustments, became one of the brightest elements of the ensemble. Louise's performance gave the show a glamorous edge, but one softened by humor and relatability. She was no longer the harsh figure she had feared playing, but rather a character viewers could laugh with and enjoy. Tina Louise later reflected on the decision to replace the show's first director with Richard Donner, calling it a turning point for both her and the series. She admitted that under the original direction, she felt Ginger was written in a way that didn't sit right with her, making the role difficult to enjoy. Donner's influence, combined with changes in the script, helped her embrace the role fully, turning earlier frustration into genuine affection for her place in the cast. In hindsight, the replacement of the original director was one of the most critical decisions in shaping the success of Gilligan's Island. It ensured the series would strike the right balance of comedy and charm, keeping audiences entertained throughout its run and long after. Donner's touch proved that sometimes a change behind the camera is what it takes to unlock the full potential of a story. The story didn't end when the island's set went dark. Years later, a reunion brought the cast back together, even as one member faced the difficult choice to walk away. The choice to walk away. When Gilligan's Island ended its original run in 1967, the series seemed destined for a quiet afterlife in syndication. Yet the show's enduring popularity soon brought it back in the form of reunion specials and made-for-TV movies. For millions of fans, these events became a chance to relive the comedy and see their favorite castaways together again. But one notable figure was always missing: Tina Louise. The actress who had embodied Ginger Grant during the original 3 seasons made a conscious decision never to return for any reunion film, a choice that sparked curiosity and conversation for decades. Part of the explanation lay in the contracts negotiated during the show's original production. Tina Louise's agreement with CBS gave her top billing, a position that ensured her name would appear before the rest of the cast in promotional materials and credits. This arrangement may have seemed natural at first, as Louise brought Broadway credentials and a glamorous presence to the ensemble. However, the way the credits were presented created a ripple of discontent. In the early episodes, the theme song listed several cast members by name, but left others lumped together as "and the rest." Specifically, Mary Ann, played by Dawn Wells, and the Professor, played by Russell Johnson, were not named individually in the opening sequence. This omission stemmed partly from contractual obligations tied to Louise's billing. The phrasing implied a hierarchy within the cast that left 2 beloved characters out of the spotlight. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, recognized the unfairness of this arrangement. Denver reportedly intervened, making it clear that the ensemble should be treated with more equality. Thanks to his insistence, the later seasons of the show adjusted the theme song, giving both Mary Ann and the Professor their rightful recognition. Although the problem was addressed, the incident left behind a subtle tension. Louise's contract had not only created professional friction, but also reinforced the sense that she was somewhat apart from the tight-knit camaraderie that developed among the other cast members. That separation grew more pronounced when the reunion films began. In 1978, CBS produced Rescue from Gilligan's Island, reuniting the castaways for the first time since the original series. Every major character returned except Ginger. The absence was immediately noticeable as another actress, Judith Baldwin, stepped into the role. 2 more reunion films followed: The Castaways on Gilligan's Island in 1979 and The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island in 1981, with Baldwin continuing as Ginger. For audiences, it was clear that Tina Louise had made up her mind to leave the role behind for good. The reasons behind her decision have been debated. Some reports suggest that she felt typecast and wanted to distance herself from the role of Ginger Grant. By refusing to participate, she may have hoped to push her career in new directions rather than continue playing the glamorous movie star indefinitely. Other accounts claim that Louise asked for a fee so high that producers could not agree to her terms, effectively ensuring she would not be included. Either way, the result was the same. The reunion specials went on without her, and fans grew accustomed to seeing someone else in the part. Louise's absence fueled speculation, but it also highlighted her determination to control her career. By not returning, she reinforced the idea that she wanted to move beyond the typecasting that had followed her since the 1960s. While her fellow castaways embraced the nostalgia and ongoing visibility the specials provided, she charted a different path, one that emphasized her independence and resistance to being defined solely by a single role. Tina Louise explained in interviews that she wanted to move forward with her career and avoid being forever tied to a single role. She said she had already done the character and wanted to explore new opportunities rather than revisit the past. That decision wasn't just professional, it had deeper roots. Let's tell you what fueled that distancing, and it is connected to her personal history. Childhood shadows. Tina Louise's story of success on screen often hides the deep shadows of her childhood. In her memoir, Sunday, and later interviews, she spoke openly about the early years that left lasting scars. Her life was marked by separation, loneliness, and a longing for the warmth of a complete family. At the age of 4, Tina's parents divorced, and she was raised mostly by her mother. That, however, was not the same as growing up in a nurturing home. By the age of 6, she was sent away to a boarding school, a decision that left her feeling abandoned during the years when she needed care the most. Reflecting on this time, she once admitted, "I didn't live with my mother until I was 11. I developed anger. That anger, born from loss and neglect, shaped the young girl who would later captivate millions on screen." Her experiences in school added to the hardship. She described being bullied by peers and punished in ways that left not only emotional wounds, but also physical ones. One memory she shared involved being stabbed with a pencil by another child, leaving her with a scar she carried for life. In addition to bullying, she faced forced isolation, where she was left alone rather than comforted. The longing for affection became a constant part of her childhood, a reminder of what she felt she had been denied. These shadows of her early years never fully disappeared, but they shaped her resilience and later influenced the roles she chose and the woman she became. While she eventually found fame on Gilligan's Island, Tina Louise's struggles did not end with childhood. She revealed another painful truth that highlighted how her professional life was not always as glamorous as it seemed. Although the show ran for 98 episodes, from 1964 to 1967, and went on to become a cultural icon, the financial rewards for the cast were shockingly small. She confirmed that each of the actors earned about $1,500 per episode during the original run. What shocked fans even more was her revelation that she never received a single cent in residuals, even though reruns and streaming have kept the show alive for nearly 60 years. Creator Sherwood Schwartz eventually earned royalties from syndication, but none of that wealth trickled down to the actors who brought the characters to life. Tina admitted that it took her time to realize just how unfair the system had been, and those wake-up calls added another layer of disappointment to her career. Yet Tina Louise did not let either her childhood pain or professional disillusionment define her entirely. Acting became her first form of escape. She found a sense of freedom in taking on different roles, allowing her to live in worlds that were far from her own troubled reality. As she once said, Louise later found solace as an actress playing make-believe. Through acting, she could momentarily step away from her inner struggles and build a new identity. In 1997, she found another powerful way to confront her past by publishing her memoir, Sunday. Writing her story gave her the opportunity to finally reconcile with the shadows of her childhood as well as the pressures of fame. The memoir, which has since been released as an audiobook, provided not only a window into her struggles, but also a way for her to regain control over the narrative of her life. It was both a confession and a healing process. In interviews, Tina Louise made it clear that while some wounds never completely vanish, she has chosen to live with strength. "I live in the present," she once shared, acknowledging that while pain lingers, she has learned not to let it hold her back. This philosophy reflects the resilience she developed over decades of both personal and professional challenges. Her story is not just one of hardship, but of transformation. From the painful memories of her youth to the disappointments of Hollywood contracts, she discovered ways to heal and to create meaning out of suffering. She turned personal shadows into lessons of strength and resilience, inspiring others who face similar struggles. Yet, even as she carried the scars of her past, Tina discovered a powerful source of healing she never expected: the unwavering love of her fans. Redemption through fans. Tina Louise's painful childhood, marked by loneliness and neglect, left scars that followed her into adulthood. Yet, years later, the love and gratitude of her fans offered a kind of healing she never expected. When she heard how her portrayal of Ginger brought comfort to different people, it allowed her to see her work in a new light, not as something she endured, but as something that mattered. In that moment, the wounds of her past softened, replaced by the quiet redemption of knowing she had given joy and solace to others. As time passed, her perspective began to shift, not through contracts or Hollywood negotiations, but through a single fan encounter that changed the way she looked at her past. One story in particular left an indelible mark on her. A woman approached Tina and shared something deeply personal. Her husband, who had been gravely ill and nearing the end of his life, found comfort in reruns of Gilligan's Island. The bright, comedic energy of the show and the charm of Tina's Ginger gave him something to hold on to during his final days. For him, Ginger wasn't just a fictional character. She was a reminder of joy, escape, and the lighter side of life, even in moments of pain. The widow's words struck Tina to her core. What she once saw as a limiting role had, in truth, offered solace to people she had never met. This realization softened her view of the series. Rather than resisting the shadow of Ginger, Tina began to embrace the profound impact the role had on viewers. The sitcom may have been dismissed by critics as light entertainment, but the stories she heard from fans revealed that it held far deeper meaning in the lives of many. In those heartfelt exchanges, Tina found redemption. She came to understand that acting was not only about fame or money, it was about connection, memory, and the way art could comfort those in need. Now, at 91 years old, Tina Louise stands as the last surviving principal cast member of Gilligan's Island. Nearly 6 decades after the show ended its original run, she remains an active presence in New York City. Though she no longer pursues Hollywood in the same way, she continues to live with purpose. She has been spotted attending cultural events, walking confidently through Manhattan streets, and engaging with the community in ways that highlight her enduring spirit. Her work extends beyond the screen. She has poured energy into literacy programs, volunteering her time to help children strengthen reading skills and discover the joy of storytelling. Her 1997 memoir, Sunday, which has since been released in audiobook format, also reflects this same drive to reach others. In it, Tina opened up about her childhood struggles, her path into acting, and the fame that followed. Reading her own story aloud for the audiobook gave her another chance to connect personally with her audience, this time not through a glamorous character, but as herself. For fans who had long admired her, the memoir provided an intimate glimpse into the woman behind the red hair and sparkling gowns. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Tina never clung to Hollywood representation or an agent in her later years. She has instead chosen a selective approach, remaining open to meaningful roles should they appear, but never chasing the spotlight. This independence mirrors her lifelong resilience. From a difficult childhood to the roller coaster of typecasting, she has built her life on her own terms. And yet, her acceptance of Ginger's place in television history shows that she has also made peace with the role that first catapulted her into stardom. Ginger's Island may live on in reruns, but through that fateful fan's message, Tina discovered something greater. Legacy isn't built on paychecks. It's carried in the hearts of those you touch. And that truth even the most devoted fans never truly figured out. Beyond the island, her legacy of giving back. Tina Louise's life took a remarkable turn long after the cameras stopped rolling on Gilligan's Island. For many actors, fame fades with the closing of the set. But for Louise, it opened the door to a more meaningful chapter, one defined not by lights, scripts, or applause, but by giving back. Her pivot from actress to advocate revealed a woman who wanted her influence to stretch beyond entertainment, reaching into the lives of those who needed encouragement, support, and hope. In 1996, Louise began working with Learning Leaders, a volunteer program dedicated to helping New York City school children. Week after week, she devoted her time to tutoring students, guiding them through the struggles of reading and literacy. For someone once defined by glamour and Hollywood roles, her joy now came from something far simpler: sitting beside a child and opening the world of books. She described the experience as deeply fulfilling, a second act in life that gave her purpose outside of the shadow of Ginger Grant. And even after the program lost funding and was eventually cut, she continued her efforts, determined not to let bureaucracy dim her passion for education. What stands out is how personal the work became for her. Louise often explained that teaching children to read was not just about academics. It was about building confidence, self-worth, and a sense of possibility. In the New York Post and Fox News profiles, she emphasized how meaningful it felt to watch students grow, how their breakthroughs in reading became her own victories. For a woman who spent much of her early career resisting typecasting, these moments allowed her to define herself on her own terms, not as a fictional character on an island, but as a mentor shaping young lives. Yet even as she built this new path, Louise never fully erased her connection to Gilligan's Island. In fact, in her later years, she spoke more openly about the show's impact, both on her and on generations of fans. In a recent interviews, she expressed a newfound gratitude. The once reluctant star began acknowledging how much joy the sitcom had brought to audiences worldwide. She admitted she had not always embraced the role, but time and fan encounters helped her realize its cultural significance. Through this reflection, Louise demonstrated a profound humility, admitting that legacy isn't always something you can control. It is something shaped by those you've touched. One of her most telling comments came in an interview with the New York Times. She said, "I'm very grateful for all the things that have happened to me. I'd like to be known for other things." That sentence carries a dual weight. On one hand, it acknowledges the success and affection she received from fans of Gilligan's Island. On the other, it hints at her longing to be remembered as more than just Ginger. She wanted her life to stand for something greater, for her work as a teacher, a writer, and a woman who gave her time to causes bigger than herself. Today, Tina Louise is living a much quieter life, away from Hollywood's spotlight. After decades of acting, modeling, and being a household name as Gilligan's Island's Ginger, she found a different kind of fulfillment in advocacy and teaching. Since the mid-1990s, she has dedicated herself to education, volunteering with New York City's Learning Leaders program to help children develop reading skills. Even after the program lost its funding, Tina continued her mission, tutoring students and finding joy in watching them grow. For her, this second act became far more meaningful than red carpets or cameras, offering a lasting sense of purpose. In recent interviews, Tina has shown a more reflective side. While she once distanced herself from Gilligan's Island, she now acknowledges the joy it brought to millions of fans and expresses gratitude for its place in her life. She often emphasizes that she'd like to be remembered not only as Ginger Grant, but also for her contributions beyond the screen, whether in education, advocacy, or simply making a difference in people's lives. Now largely retired from acting, Tina Louise remains a symbol of resilience, reinvention, and grace, proof that her legacy stretches well beyond the island that made her famous. Do you feel Tina's legacy is defined more by Gilligan's Island or by the life she built beyond it? Share in the comments.